This week, we're talking about money. At the beginning of this chapter, James was talking about figurative killing among Christians. Christians can't be at peace with one another when they're more interested in satisfying their own selfish desires. And now James levels the charge of adultery against Christians, figurative adultery. He says in chapter 4, verse 4, "Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God." James says if you're friends with the world, then you are a spiritual adulterer. Actually, he calls you an adulteress, like Israel and Judah were compared to adulteresses back in the Old Testament, flaunting themselves with idols. And James says Christians can be guilty of that adultery too. Friendship with the world is a hostile act towards God. But let's make sure we understand the world first, what James means by that, and then I'll get to friendship. What is the world? The world is just the entire system of humanity and all of its crookedness and perversity. The egocentric structures and values, institutions they're all organized around something other than God. The world is God's enemy. So being friendly with the world makes you an enemy of God. You can't be a friend of the world and a friend of God. You have to be the enemy of one or the other. You have to be a friend of one or the other. There's no neutral stance. You're either a friend of God or a friend of the world. And now that brings us to coins. Coins and friendship. When we think of friendship, we tend to think of kind regards and affection. And that's where most discussions go on what this verse means by friendship. But I say, show me the money.
Money, money, money.
Do you know how we know what Greek and Hebrew words in the Bible mean? We use these books called lexicons, like this one right here. Like this is a lexicon, and these are lexicons. They're like dictionaries. And the people who make lexicons, they're called lexicographers. Lexicographers look at old stuff people wrote to figure out what these old words mean. They study ancient literature, inscriptions, personal letters, and more stuff. But out of all the stuff they look at, do you know what they don't look at a whole lot? Coins.
Coins.
Money.
Money, baby. Money, money, money.
The lexicons, the lexicographers have basically ignored coins. But coins offer more clues, more evidence of how words were used in their ancient context. And they have some ancient light to shed on this word in James for friendship. Here's one example. This is a coin of Agrippa the First. You might know him better as Herod. That's what Luke calls him in the book of Acts. This is the same guy that had James put to death. The same guy that had Peter arrested. This is the same guy that Acts 12 tells us was struck down by the angel of the Lord and he died. Death by worms. For real, look it up. Super gross. But before the Lord and the worms got him, he was king, and part of his kingdom was Judea. And he issued coins for his kingdom. This is one of his coins, and it shows Herod and the Roman emperor, Claudius. This emperor also shows up in the book of Acts, actually, but let's not get off track here. The image on this coin depicts the signing of a treaty between these two men, Herod and the emperor. And the back of the coin says so. It reads this. It says, sworn treaty of great King Agrippa to Augustus Caesar, it's referring to Claudius, and to the Senate and to the people of the Romans. Now, here's the part we really care about. It says this at the end: his friendship and alliance. The Roman emperor did a lot for Herod, and Herod was a pretty loyal subject. What these two men had was a friendship, but it was a political friendship. And this is the common theme with a lot of these coins that have this word on it. There are others like this one that celebrate friendship between emperor and a king or a governor. And the governor, he represents the authority of the emperor. It doesn't necessarily involve an emotional attachment or affection between the two. It's about obligation. This kind of friendship it's about responsibility. It's allegiance. And when we're comparing our relationship to God and the world, we should ask ourselves where our allegiance, where our loyalties lie. Sure, we have affections and an emotional connection, but where are we placing our allegiance? If we give our friendship, if we obligate ourselves to the world, we're not giving God our allegiance. We're loyal to this world, and that's spiritual adultery. So what's the remedy? And James, he brings this out in the Bible. He wants us to check our attitude towards the Word of God. That's the question James raises in the next verse. The scriptures tell us God longs. He longs for our loyalty and devotion. He wants our allegiance. And James quotes Proverbs 3:34. God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. It turns out our friendship is a matter of humility. We can oppose God in our arrogance, or we can give him our humble allegiance. We can commit spiritual adultery, or we can have friendship with God. Which do you want? Humble yourself before God. Submit to his authority. And you know what God will do? James tells us in his quote from the book of Proverbs, God will give you grace. And we need God's grace. We have a jealous God. He's a consuming fire. The proud, they won't receive God's help. He resists them. But if you approach the Lord in humility, he will graciously give you what you need so that you can give him your total allegiance. As Augustine said, God gives what he demands. But to receive God's grace, you must be humble. Admit your need for God's help, God's gift, his grace, and accept his grace, his gift, so that you can give the Lord your total allegiance.
What is friendship? Well, for one thing, friendship is sharing. Sharing activities, interests, or even different opinions.
Here, let me show you. It's kind of tricky.
Friends offer something to each other.
Hey, thanks for watching the latest video. This was number 21. Plenty more to come. Like and subscribe if you want to. Maybe you know someone who collects coins, a numismatist. Tell them about this video. Or maybe you have a friend, someone you have a close emotional bond with, or someone you're loyal to. Feel free to send them a link. I'll see you next week.